Hello, everyone. Hello, 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 and welcome to this week's edition of Anchor Watch. I am your host, Bobby Jones. And needless to say, we got a lot of stuff apparently to talk about here. Um, it seems like it's been a month, even though it's just been a week. But there are things that I think people need to understand about some of the developments that have happened, and most importantly, why you should care because I'm getting that question a lot too from people who are trying to be purposely obtuse. And I need you guys today to ask all the dumb questions. If you think they're dumb, they're not, because pretty much many people don't know or understand what's happening internationally, especially. So, what I want to do is I want to bring um, Sam in, um, producer extraordinaire. How's it going, Sam?
Good. How you doing, Bobby?
I'm doing well. I'm doing something.
You're doing.
um, I just find this whole situation. Um, it's a test. It's a test that I don't think we've had since January 6th in American
Wow.
culture. And I'm not saying that arbitrarily, because here's the thing: January 6th was internal, right? Internal to the United States. Was it devastating? Was it shocking to the world? Of course it was. But it was just us affected. What is happening right now in the Caribbean is affecting not just us, but it has ripple effects around the world. So, just a quick recap for those who have been living under a rock. The Washington Post came out with an article saying September 2nd, our first strikes on Venezuelan drug runners, or as the president is now calling them, narco terrorists, a new term to make it seem more ridiculous. Um, they destroyed a boat, 11 people on it, and it turns out that two survived. And as they were clinging to floating debris, a second strike was ordered, which is what's called the double tap that all of a sudden people are using as that term. Well, the problem with that is it is uh, it is a criminal act. If we were at war, it'd be considered a war crime. If we aren't at war, which we're not, it's an international crime. And what people need to understand is allegedly it was Hegseth who gave the kill them all order. Now, it's interesting to walk you guys through some of this. Originally, they denied the report. Then they acknowledged the report. Then they said Hegseth didn't order it. Then they said the admiral in charge of that operation, the head of Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, ordered it. And now they're saying, yeah, even if he ordered it based on what Hegseth said, it's legal. um, they keep walking this goal post back because number one, they're caught. There's nothing anybody's going to be able to tell me that's going to change my mind on this. All right. And I say this, Sam, because yes, was in the Navy 26 years, but yes, also did boats. I was in charge of a Marine squadron, commanding officer. Yes. But here's the thing, forget my experience and my perception. I'm looking at what the people closest to the Secretary of Defense are doing. They're resigning. The lead JAG for Southcom is like, I'm out. I'm trying, but y'all aren't listening. You have reports today because they have thrown the admiral under the bus that senior officials everywhere in the Pentagon are pissed. You had the removal of the Pentagon press corps of not too long after this. There are all these dominoes that are falling into place. And here's my telltale sign that this is serious, and it happened. When Pete Hegseth, in particular, out of everybody in that cabinet, when he goes full culture war, that's when you know he has nothing. When he was going through his confirmation hearing, people don't remember this, but I do. When he was getting grilled by Senator Duckworth, and other veterans on the Senate Armed Service Committee during his confirmation hearing. When he got to something he did not know, he quickly pivoted to a culture war, trans in the military, gays in the military, this, that, and the other. When he was asked basic fundamental questions like what's ASEAN, the 10 nation alliance in Southeast Asia that he should know because we deal with, he didn't know, but he pivoted to culture wars. So when he tweeted out the picture of that little, turtle shooting up boats after all
Yeah,
this broke,
right. Franklin,
that's
yeah.
that's when I knew he was guilty as hell. That's when I knew, because he's got nothing left. And that is what he does when he has nothing to fall back on. He wrote that book, he wrote multiple books, when he was in fights with his wife at the time, getting ready to divorce, all this kind of, he falls back on the myth of white male masculinity in America. That's what he does.
Right.
And so he did this, he ordered it, and then, and we'll play the clip here in a second, Sam, he is being pretentious about it. And we'll talk about why. But that's just my initial reaction on this.
I mean, there are so many things here, and the chat is lighting up about this. And Patrick has a question I'm going to get to in a second. I made a banner. I'll run it in a sec. But I think the thing that you always remind me is that all this stuff is going on. It feels very wrong. But civilians, we don't know fuck all about it, right? And I think our tendency is to spout off and talk about what's going on, and suddenly we're all experts on it and this kind of thing. But the thing about the military is, you guys are actual very real experts, and I have a advanced degree, I have a master's or whatever. That was 2 years of just reading and writing a lot. You forge your expertise in action, right? In your 24-hour a day, 365 days a year, training and study for decades. Like, that is a kind of expertise that almost nobody watching the show will ever understand, and me absolutely included. And I think that Hegseth is the one thing we can probably agree on is that he's not an expert. Right.
Yeah.
Right. He will also not understand what that means. And I think the devastating thing to me is the throwing the admiral under the bus is it's so gross. And this here's Patrick's question. Do you think they're going to fire the admiral?
I think they'll seriously consider it if they believe that it would save Hegseth. What you're watching is the Trump playbook being applied to protect Hegseth. Trump likes Hegseth. I've said this before. I think Trump envisions him as the what if I did the military thing in many respects. He is one-dimensional. I see Susan saying that. He is one-dimensional. But here's the thing. He's a dimension that Trump relates to. Okay.
He's a TV personality. He's an entertainer. He's a good-looking
3
guy.
times married, this, that, and the other. All the stuff that Trump sees himself as. And so even though he has sidelined him on real Department of Defense things like, Ukraine, the Middle East, other things like that, they still have kept him around. I believe that they're willing to sacrifice a damn near 40-year career of a Navy SEAL to save him. Because here's the other thing too. If Hegseth is fired by Trump, it's an admission that Trump once again does not hire the best people.
Right.
It's a failure of his judgment. No matter how old he is, no matter how demented he may be, it's going to be a direct callback to his choice. Because remember, out of all of the clowns, and let me emphasize clowns that rolled up for confirmation after this election, Hegseth and Patel were by far the worst and the most controversial. Pam Bondi and Chrissy Nomes had better confirmation hearings than those two did. And who are the two that are being pressured to be fired? Patel, Hegseth. Two totally different reasons, but all united under the mindset of vanity and arrogance.
Right.
Can you roll the clip of him talking about this his interpretation of what happened and how he said he didn't see this then? Yeah, I just want people to watch this real quick.
So you didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike? You personally?
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President.
So this guy, he knows that most Americans don't serve. You know, less than 1% of us serve. So he tries to wear his service as like this protective armor. The fog of war. First of all, he doesn't know a goddamn thing about the fog of war at sea. At sea. Two totally different things. This is why we have separate branches of service. Like the fog of war, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't understand ancient maritime law. Something sinking, you watch it till it sinks, basically. You know what I'm saying? There are certain things that he doesn't know because he's not a part of the culture, but it sounds cool in the moment because you media types don't know. Let me tell you something. There are people in the media that have been on ships way more than he has.
True.
Just being real. And so the guilt trip that he's trying to lay on people because they don't experience things. Let me put it this way. He can't say that in front of a room full of veterans. He didn't try that line of attack with the admirals and generals. But understand, he is doing any and everything he can to look like he is an alpha male when he knows the entire world, not the United States, the entire world is coming down on him. The United Kingdom, they're not sharing intel with us anymore. These attacks have been condemned at the United Nations. This man has been a perpetual public mistake since he's been appointed. It's full stop. From Signal Gate to the speech in Quantico, to the comments he made about this, that, and the removal of people from military history, he has been non-stop tragic.
I forgot about
Signal
Gate, to be honest.
I mean, I can go all day. I mean,
oh my God.
It's like a bad advent calendar with this guy. You wake up the next day and you're like, oh my God, instead of chocolate, it's a piece of shit. It's like each day he's bringing something new. I just don't understand how Congress, because here's the thing, he can be removed, he can be impeached. And I think depending on a couple of things that seem unrelated but are related. There's an election being held. I'm in Tennessee at the moment. A special election being held in Tennessee, where a deep red district could possibly flip south of Nashville, part of Nashville, south of Nashville.
And by the way, if anybody in the chat, if you see results post here, I'll keep an eye on it too.
This is a huge deal because it's like the canary in the coal mine after what happened in November, right? So if this happens, where a red seat is flipped blue,
or even tight,
or it's close, and the Republicans see the tsunami coming, what's going to happen is this: they're going to start thinking about life post-Trump. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene got out. That's why another resignation is coming from the House. You're going to see these things happen, and this is going to become a tsunami. So now we go from the party of Trump and just letting anything happen to now the party of self-preservation. Part of that self-preservation means if you get evidence on Hegseth where, hey, you know he did it, they could remove him. He can be impeached. And the bipartisanness of this whole issue from day one is shocking. It'd be shocking in quote regular political times. But this may be the straw that broke the camel's back and breaks the fever. Just saying.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe even a death by 1,000 cuts, right? But I want to kind of go back a little bit to Hegseth and all of this, because there's something that I think is we've talked about a little bit, but I think it's important to kind of reiterate this, that you said he's first it was this guy's fault, and then they knew about it, but then they didn't know about it, and then it was talk about the chain of command, because I know it's such an essential piece of
yes, it
how
is.
this whole thing operates.
And this is something that, even when they have former admirals and generals on, the military, the media does not really dig into, probably because it's kind of complex to them or they don't understand it. So I want everybody to think there are two chains of commands that happen when a force deploys. So let's take the I don't know, USS Higgins. This is a destroyer. I don't know if they're attached to George Washington. No, you know what? Let's just take the Gerald R. Ford. It's an aircraft carrier, right? That aircraft carrier has what's called an operational chain of command and an administrative chain of command. The operational chain of command, that is the one that basically orders you to fire, to blow stuff up. The administrative chain of command is the man, train, and equip. How does that ship get to that location? Well, someone has to man it, someone has to train the people on it, and someone has to make sure all the equipment is there. That's a separate thing. What people get confused of is who's in charge of what, especially at the top. So like the Chief of Naval Operations, the CNO, the number one dude in the Navy, does not have operational command or tactical command of the Gerald R. Ford.
Right.
His responsibility is to make sure it's properly maintained, the people are trained and ready to deploy. Man, train, equip. Meanwhile, the other side, the operational chain of command, in this case, they are attached to Southcom. However, even in that chain of command, where Admiral Halsey was at the top, there can be a situation where, especially when special forces are involved, where that now becomes special operations command, the special forces command that takes over, and they're in charge because of the uniqueness of the mission. And so Southcom is the area of responsibility where this happened, but this mission, because it involves SEALs, had a piece of the operational chain of command that went directly to the special operations people. Now, the media loves saying SEAL Team 6, SEAL Team 6. That's not really a thing. That's something the media has come up with. It's become an easy title. What they mean is Naval Special Warfare Development Group. DevGru is basically like the all-stars of all the SEAL teams that get selected for a special mission. It's the closest thing I think we have to like G.I. Joe.
Gotcha.
Where you just select these badasses from various organizations in the military, they go do this. These people are very, very good at their job. But most importantly, they know the enemy, they study the enemy, and they're ready to attack. This is where I want people to listen very close to what I'm saying. The military, especially in this type of environment, this, that, and the other, on deployment, we are a weapon. You point and fire us. The people who point and fire us, though, at the end of the day, are civilians. The Secretary of Defense, the President of the United States in this case. The Secretary of the Navy is with the CNO, man, train, equip. But the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States, especially when you're doing a preemptive strike against another nation's citizens, that goes all the way to the top, because those actions could spark a war. So you better be damn sure this is what you want. So when Hegseth is sitting there saying, oh, I don't know about this, or I gave this order, you notice one thing he did not deny. He did not deny him saying the words, kill them all. He has yet to do that. Right. All the dancing, all this, that, and the other, he has yet to say, I never said that. That should tell everybody what happened. And if he said it once and he walked out the room, the fact that he said it and did not explicitly say, hey, don't do this, or hey, leave survivors, or hey, listen. He left the ambiguity after saying that. And if there wasn't a concern that they were illegal, then why would you have the Department of Justice out of their jurisdiction write a memorandum to cover members of the Department of Defense? I'm just asking questions.
Look, Trump put out a truth, or I don't even know where it came from anymore. He's truthed so much in the past 24-ish hours, but something about how, the 6 who came out and said, you don't have to, you need to ignore illegal orders or disobey illegal orders. He said they're something along the lines of, they're traitors because no orders that I give are illegal. Right. And okay, well, if that's true, then who cares?
Well,
then they should obey all of them. Right.
Well,
that's the whole point of this.
Right. Monarch's disease. He believes he's a monarch. He believes he's an absolute monarch. And here's the thing, Patrick asked a question about written rules. I'll take you one further. The United States military has this thing called the law of armed conflict, the laws of armed conflict. And in that manual, it's a manual.
Let me read the question so everyone knows who you're talking about. Bobby says, or Patrick says, Bobby, would there be written rules of engagement, or do they no longer even bother? It might be evidence.
Right. And what I'm telling you is specifically in the law of armed conflict manual, the example of not committing a war crime is this exact scenario. A ship that has been blown up in combat, attacked, and you have survivors floating in the water. And it specifically says, if you, as a United States military member, attacks and kills those people, you have committed a war crime. It is verbatim in there. And the reason it's verbatim in there is because the Japanese did this in World War II, the Germans did it in World War II, and the world went out of their way to explicitly say that scenario is illegal. When you had 72,000 merchant mariners, the people that just moved weapons and troops from the United States into the European theater and to the Pacific theater, okay? They weren't even sailors. They were just being escorted. It was the most dangerous place in World War II to be. It was not Europe. It was not in the Pacific island hopping. It was being a merchant mariner, 72,000. And because so many died, many of them died after the U-boat sunk them and then went and strafed them. Right. They sunk. So the world is acutely aware of this. Why do you think the UK was the first ones to be like, we're done with y'all? Because they suffered the most. But see, when you don't know your history, you don't know how these rules happen, you just sit there and be like, oh, this is great. Da, 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 da. It doesn't matter. It does matter. It does matter. So the world has seen this. And so here we have boat strikes that are taking place with zero, and I mean zero evidence presented by the president, presented by the attorney general, presented by the secretary of state or the secretary of defense. None of those 4 have presented 1 ounce of iota of evidence. And then these people have been wiped out. And here's other pieces you understand about the Caribbean too. You have human trafficking that happens too. Who's to say that the 2 people that were clinging to life were there, were there against their will? They could have been kidnapped or grabbed to be mules to smuggle the drugs against their own will. Now they're gone. What are we doing?
Look, this is all a part and parcel of the lack of due process for everyone, right? And due process is there because, let's say someone is guilty, right? It doesn't matter unless you prove that guilt. If you don't prove the guilt, if you punish them without proving guilt, without putting them through due process, you lose the faith in the system, right? So next time you want to go out and prosecute someone, everyone's like, fuck you.
Right.
Like, who knows? I don't know if that's true. I don't know what's true. You have to sort out the facts from the fiction, and that they're not doing this. They're this whole double tap bullshit. Double tap is such a cartoony movie word.
Exactly.
Come on.
We're literally watching the remnants of bad 1980s action movies being played out in
Yes,
real time.
totally.
And here's the thing that just I'm just trying to wrap my mind around. You know, I saw someone earlier this week talk about, well, we did it for 20 years, the global war on terrorism, blah, 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 blah. And to a degree, they are right with the operations and how that stuff is authorized. But here's the number one difference between what's happening right now and what happened in the aughts and the tens, right?
Mhm.
The United States Congress gave an authorization of use of military force that Bush had to get, that Obama had to get, and that Trump in his first term had to get. There was congressional oversight, which meant there was a process that was due, right? Now, you may not have agreed with the designations, but representatives of the American people signed off on the actions that took place. And it was presented to our NATO allies and other allies, and they also agreed on those actions. So there was a consensus, right or wrong, globally on those actions. This here, completely 100% unadulterated different. This is the biggest cloak and dagger thing that we've seen in a generation. And here's the difference. Instead of them trying to get the authorization, they're doing the strike and then trying to back cover, which is
Yeah.
the opposite way it's supposed to happen. So, Patrick asks, why is the SecDef monitoring these missions? I can tell you why, because there's no standing orders on how these missions are supposed to operate. Because there's no national security strategy, there's no authorization of use of military force. This is something that's a target of opportunity due to economic, political, and social pressures that the Trump administration is dealing with. It's that simple.
Look, I mean, they're taking this idea of like, don't ask permission, ask forgiveness,
Mhm.
right? Which is in and of itself kind of bullshit too. But
Mhm.
when you do that in this context, you've destroyed alliances, you've destroyed
Mhm.
economies, you've destroyed countries, you have destroyed the lives of soldiers and sailors. This is not something that anyone will forgive you for. You can ask forgiveness. It's not coming.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, Sam, because what you're seeing is the erosion of something that took damn near 80 years to build. And it's happening fast. It's happening fast because even in our worst times in Afghanistan and Iraq, right? Most people around the world saw the initial justification of why America acted in the way it did. 9/11. It was horrific. The world saw it live. It was something that shaped a generation.
Yeah.
Now, does that give you blanket cover to do all the crazy stuff that eventually happened? Absolutely not. But there was a relatability somewhere on this line.
Right.
What we're dealing with right now, no. No, it seems out of the blue, and it's coming from a president that said all the other wars were stupid, as he is going out of his way to start not just a kinetic war with Venezuela, but a trade war with the entire world and a domestic conflict with his own cities. Think about that. There's not been one thing that this man has done in America, specifically for Americans, that has brought peace, but yet the man says he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. When you have your own military marching down the streets of your metropolitan citizens. Minneapolis and St. Paul are the latest, where Governor Walz is, because, political retribution is the vogue thing to do in 2025.
And look, I lived in Minneapolis for almost a decade, and it's a beautiful city, very nice people, for the most part, very well run. And also, when I taught college English, I taught a ton of Somali students because it's full of them, and they were diligent, incredibly hardworking, incredibly kind.
Most
you know,
immigrants are. It's like,
most immigrants are, and he, has said he wants all of them out.
mhm.
And there's a really big community of them
Mhm.
in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the other thing too, is he becomes more older and you can tell the dementia's kicking in, just like family
Yeah.
relatives, the
Mhm.
filter comes off. Make no mistake, they want all people of color removed.
Yes.
They open the doors for Afrikaners,
Ugh.
but but then try to remove everybody. I was talking about the oppression, the racial oppression of Afrikaners in South Africa, right? And so this is all connected to watch it happen real time though. And then in typical, and I mean typical Trump fashion, to give a pardon to an actual drug dealer, the former Honduran president. And it's interesting, no one is asked about money transactions. No one's asked any of that. But what I find fascinating is he's doing that. That man was proven by an American jury to bring in cocaine.
Due
The,
diligence.
the yes, but the strikes in Venezuela are supposedly to stop fentanyl, when fentanyl does not come from Venezuela.
No.
Anybody who deals with maritime interdiction knows that. Like it's a fact. And yet here we are, and American people are like, yeah, because again, this is what Hegseth is. I'm going to throw some terms out there that I know the American people are
Yeah.
too lazy to look up. It takes you 2 seconds to be like, where does fentanyl come from? I can tell you where it's not going to say Venezuela.
Right.
I
Right.
promise you that, right? But we are literally dealing with that in real time while an actual huge cocaine dealer gets a pardon. He is literally responsible for bringing tons of drugs into America, and we pardon him.
I think the fatal flaw in those fishermen's lives is that they didn't have the money to bribe President Trump, and that's why they're no longer with us.
Well, the fact that you have to be so
This
transactional just to live is
this
crazy.
guy.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
the guy we're talking about.
what's interesting to me about that picture, when I look at that picture, it's like, okay, at some point, you have to make amends with the fact that you don't have much longer. But because he has been so rooted in doing this so long, hurting people, destroying people's lives, well before he was president, I think
Yeah.
he's made the capitulation that he's just going to go out doing the only thing he knows. And when I see that picture, I think of how he went after Joe Biden for being sleepy and old and beat down. And it's
Mhm.
almost like the universe is giving you this karmic like reaction where it's like the whole world is going to watch you deteriorate and your ego will not stop you from being in the limelight. And we're seeing it. I
I
mean,
mean,
geez,
yeah.
that man looks bad.
Well, I was interested in that chain of command situation because I know you've talked about it. And I also know that
Mhm.
anybody in a leadership role has to be able to take a responsibility for those under them, right?
It'd be nice.
Yeah, because otherwise you have people who don't have your back if you don't think they have your back, this, that, and the other. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Senator Mark Kelly
Yes.
um, because I know he's getting death threats now, but
Yes.
he has more experience than Hegseth, dramatically more experience. What's your take on Kelly and that whole situation?
Well, first of all, out of 6 senators that they picked, I just think it was insane for them to go after that guy.
Right.
The combat pilot, astronaut, husband of Gabby Giffords. Um, his family, twin brothers, also an astronaut. His family has done more to put themselves on the line for this country than pretty much anybody, probably in this generation, when you think about it.
Mhm.
I
Right.
remember how he was with Gabby to get her back on the House floor and how big a deal it was when she got back into the House after being shot, meeting with constituents. And this is the guy that specifically Hegseth This is how you know it's imposter syndrome 101. You know, Mark Kelly is what Hegseth wishes he was, right? But here's the thing. Leadership 101, you are the one that takes responsibility for when things go bad, and you are the one to give praise to everybody else when things go good. Full stop. That's leadership 101. From day one, plebe year at Annapolis, that's what they hammer into you, or West Point, or wherever you go. I mean, that's it. And Hegseth has, I mean, the man is backpedaling so fast, he looks like Deion Sanders in his prime. I mean, he is backpedaling on everything, right? And now Trump has gotten involved. It's like, yeah, blame the admiral. Blame the admiral. Now, how do you think this is going over with the flag officers that they called to Quantico, to include that admiral?
Totally.
And every last one of them didn't want to be there in the first place. And now they see how this man acts when things get real. And you got a clip of the speech that he gave at Quantico. There's one thing that I want people to really pay attention to. Can we bring that clip up?
Yeah.
We fight to win. We unleash overwhelming and punishing violence on the enemy. We also don't fight with stupid rules of engagement. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country. No more politically correct and overbearing rules of engagement. Just common sense, maximum lethality, and authority for warfighters. That's all I ever wanted as a platoon leader. And it's all my E6 squad leaders ever wanted, back to that E6 rule. We let our leaders fight their formations, and then we have their back. It's very simple, yet incredibly powerful.
So there are so many things in that clip that convey how he thinks as a leader. Number one, might makes right, period.
Right.
Period. He also believes in, if you are the one that is the mighty, you therefore are not subject to any restraints. That's what he said. That's basically what he said. And this clown does not understand that the reason Americans had been welcomed as a military force around the world is because they realized that we would not abuse that power. That's the number one reason.
Right.
Believe me, you have other militaries that do it. And we catch, it's so funny, we catch hell as an American military if we do one slight thing wrong compared to, I can point to some militaries that you're going to be like, what the hell? I get it. That's the standard that we have for ourselves, and we should strive to maintain it. Full stop. We're not degrading ourselves just because. But he is saying that's exactly what he wants. We're the big dogs. We should be able to do whatever the hell we want. It's the most bully mentality ever, right? That's number one. Number two, the fact that he calls rules of engagement stupid shows a lack of a strategic thinking mind. Now, this man went to Princeton, played basketball there, sat the bench, he sucked, whatever. But he does not think strategically at all. And he is the damn Secretary of Defense. The rules of engagement are not necessarily for how America conducts itself, but it's for how other nations will conduct themselves when dealing with America. So if we are captured, there's a certain level of humanity that is expected. If something does go sideways, because guess what? It can, in that fog of war that he talked about, there's an expectation on how to deal with those situations. When I was still in the Navy, I was the XO, second in command of USS Anzio, where we had 10 sailors kidnapped in the Persian Gulf, and USS Anzio responded. I'm dealing with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Navy directly. And those rules of engagement, those Geneva Conventions, those things that talk about how you treat prisoners of war came into play. So I'm not just saying this to say it. I'm saying it from experience and understanding why and how we have those rules. It saved people's lives. And to be completely honest, probably stopped a second Persian Gulf War from kicking off right there in 2016. Okay? The fact that he can't relate to that or even fathom that, because I need to be Don Johnson, Miami Vice 1987, What are we doing? How is this man in charge of the world's most powerful military?
I mean, look, I think exerting, saying shit like lethality and maximum lethality, and we leave our enemies vanquished,
God.
and all of this kind of stuff doesn't portray strength. Because if you're really strong, you'd never have to say any of that stuff, right? I mean, and that's where America's strength, I think, in the 50s, 60s, and the
Mhm.
post-war years really took on significant, world-changing dominance, in that we didn't have to exert our strength. When
Right.
we did use it, often we used it inappropriately. Vietnam was not a great time in our our history, and it was an improper exertion of our dominance. It kind of
Mhm.
was. We were way more dominant financially and economically across Europe. We rebuilt Europe with our all of our money. I
Mhm.
don't know. It just seems like if you're so strong and you walk into the playground, you're not just beating everybody to a pulp,
Right.
right? You have to.
Right.
You have to do that.
And I think there's a piece of this that is not being talked about when America goes to war. When any country goes to war, if they're on the side of what's considered morally right, that gives you this extra kick, I would say. For example, Vietnam was completely a cluster, gray areas everywhere, because you basically had two superpowers trying to impose their will on a smaller nation. Full stop. No one really won, right? As opposed to a World War II, where it was very evident there was a bad guy and good guys, right? Um, and that goes beyond technological superiority. That gives you
Sure.
this extra mindset I have to push forward because you're fighting for right, whether you want to admit it or not. And unfortunately, in the last 70 years, the United States has been in a lot less of those cut and dry situations. But here's the thing that has happened: there's been an arrogance amongst America, specifically some of these people who helped write Project 2025, where there is this, well, because we're America, we're right. No, we're America because we consistently question ourselves on what is right and how do we get there. That is the difference. And so Hegseth operates from, well, I'm the guy that's in charge of the American military. So what we do, what we say goes. And no proper Secretary of Defense has ever approached that job with that mentality. Just
Right.
haven't. Even our most controversials like Robert McNamara, you know, the Fog of War, which is the book and the movie that he did before he died, talking about these
Yeah.
type of things, understanding where he went wrong. I, I don't know if Hegseth even heard of that book or read that or seen that movie. He should, but his mentality, we've learned everything we need to know about this man in the last 72 to 96 hours. How he has responded to this. It's been brought to the forefront. He's always been like this. People who work in the Pentagon don't trust him because of this. But the way he's acting publicly, the stupid Franklin tweet, the freaking disowning of the whole situation, and you're the
Yeah.
person that's supposed to be in charge, but yet when it's convenient for you to look tough, you want to parade around in front of military people and go do some damn pull-ups. It's insane to me that Congress, and I'm using again Congress, oversight of the military, is tolerating this guy. They voted him in. People like Joni Ernst voted him in, which is why she can't run for re-election, one of the many reasons. And this is what you're dealing with. So I just literally, I literally, I'm at a loss, because if next week we're at war with Venezuela, right? Who's going to sit there and say who's to blame? Who's going to call that out?
I mean, that's the thing. Look, I think this is a weird side banter about
Mhm.
this, but we've talked a lot about AI lately, and here's the
Mhm.
problem: if AI is making decisions for your company, for your country, for your military, for anyone. Who do you hold accountable? Right. And because accountability is everything in chain of command and decision making, whether it's military or not military. Accountability is who made this shit idea, right?
Yeah.
How if something goes terribly wrong, we need somebody to answer for it. And Hegseth is demonstrating over the last 72 hours, that's not me. I will answer for nothing.
Well,
and Trump, we know over 10 years. Nope. If it's bad, it wasn't mine. If it's good, it's mine.
I think the thing that's really amazing to me is when you say lack of accountability, if you had to name somewhere in the current government structure, that includes all three branches of government at the highest levels, the president, Congress, the Supreme Court, who would actually take accountability for their actions and decisions right now?
That's an amazing question.
It's a simple question, though, because everybody wants to be in charge. We used to say in the military, everybody wants to be a leader until it's time to do some leadership shit, right? Everybody wants to be in charge, right? But who is willing to say, that's on me, or I did this? And this is the nature of what's wrong with not just politics, but American leadership right now. You can see the same mentality in CEOs. You see it in professional sports where head football coaches will fire everybody but themselves when they suck. There is an abdication of accountability. And now at the very top of American government, it could drag us into a conflict that no one saw coming. Think about this time. Think about this time, Sam, this time last year. Elections had just happened. Trump is going back in the White House. Did you predict that we could possibly be going to war with Venezuela?
I mean, no. There's so much stuff. I was like, oh, this is going to be really bad. I had no
think
idea.
about it. So think about that.
It got bad.
We go from no one even had Venezuela on the radar to a year later almost being at war with them. What do you think the next year is going to do, especially right before midterms?
Yeah.
What do you think? And see, this is the thing. People are like, oh, there's going to be distractions. He's going to cause a war, so there's no elections. That's not what's going to happen. I mean, dude, we didn't miss any elections during World War II. All right. We kept everything going. The troops were able to vote from abroad, etc. What people need to be asking themselves, though, is this. The economy is showing no signs of recovering. It's going down. AI and the reliance on it is growing, right? The billionaires that were at the inauguration, specifically the billionaires that were at the inauguration, their monetary value has increased unbelievable in the last year, while you, the average American citizen, and the affordability of living in America has become much more difficult. After the new year kicks over, your health insurance is going to go through the roof 3-4 times. Okay. You tell me, people, is this what you voted for in 2024? I'm even asking the people that, wore the red hats and said MAGA, is this what you voted for? Losing your farm, all of this. Your son may go off to war. Your daughter may go off to war. You didn't plan it. Because here's the thing. Joining the military may be the only way you can get health care. Maybe able to afford it. I mean, there are certain things when you look at it and start connecting the dots, you're creating a permanent servant class that in order to survive, you have to be able to, willing to say you're willing to give up your life and serve in the military or do something like this in order to survive, because affordability is going through the roof. Meanwhile, the same people who were rich 10 years ago are even more richer now, and you have no shot of getting there with your degrees being devalued, with student loans not being available or going through the roof. Tell me right now, are you better off now than you were a year ago? That's where I'm at.
It's that simple. We have a question from Jackie. I heard earlier today that an attack on Venezuela will be the tipping point for the world to get involved. Is that realistic? And I want to add something too. What do you think's going on with the rest of the world? Are alliances being built in private around us?
So Short answer is yes. Now, there were things that were moving in the background the last 15, 20 years, like BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India,
Mhm.
China. So there are things that have been coalescing. But what you're seeing, in my humble opinion, is due to the instability of a United States government that you can actually predict and depend on. You have two major things that are happening. Number one, we're repeating the same mistakes the world repeated almost over 100 years ago with these many alliances. That's what led to World War One. Alliance here, alliance there, alliance there. Now, it starts out economically, typically, right? But when you have Japan, who had a pacifist constitution, having active debates in the last 3, 4 years about changing their constitution to rearm themselves, that's a problem.
Yeah.
When you have the rise of a right side movement in Germany, that's a problem. When they have counterparts in France, of all places, that's a problem. So you're seeing these little hegemonies starting to reappear because they're cracks in the armor. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, China has maintained its same philosophy here. Whether the economy is down or not, they are going to maintain. Putin's grip on Russia is still there. Only difference is now he has a willing lackey at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Right.
All right. So you have the world once again carving itself up, carving itself up. There was a blip where when Russia invaded Ukraine, that the world came together, but then Trump made sure for that to fall apart. You do not have a viable international alliance structure that is anywhere as strong as it was 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 40 years ago. So that's something that should concern people.
Well,
Then when
America's
you
the linchpin, right? I mean,
Well, right, and that's my point. We were the glue, and then when you add the economics from housing bubbles, the AI bubble, which has now been acknowledged, it's a bubble, so it's going to pop.
massive.
The crypto scams that have happened that Trump has proactively taken part in. You have people that are losing money hand over fist that are not going to be able to maintain quality of lifestyle, let alone wealth because of these changes, and a select few are being able to capitalize on it. I don't think it's a coincidence that you see members of Congress who are going to resign for two reasons. Number one, because it's toxic and they're probably not going to win anyway. But number two, when you look at the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are retired, they all have been vested. They have served long enough in Congress to receive a lifetime pension. They still have their insider stock tips. They have met with people that they know will keep them in the green, right? They have made their money off the government. And to remind people about how this Constitution was set up, there's a reason why Congress has freaking recesses throughout the year, because it was never supposed to be a full-time job. It was never
Right.
supposed to be full-time politicians. Those recesses happened so the planters, the plantation owners, would go back, plant their seed, and then go back and harvest their crops.
Yep.
It was supposed to be part-time, but now it's a full-time career to which every last member of Congress has made money off of being in that seat, which is why they run. Not to serve you, but to make money. Now they've made their money, you're just going to see a lot of them exit. And then you have the few that want to stay there till they die because they're addicted to the power. But mind you, none of this is serving us at the moment. And that's what's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I think if Putin were in charge, what would we be doing differently right now? Right? Oh, nothing. Like
Well,
I also wonder about this, Bobby. Uh, as we grapple with autocracy here and abroad in places like Hungary and elsewhere, um, I'm wondering if and also now TikTok is big in the United States, and
mhm.
and obviously it's Chinese owned and operated, and I wonder if we if this is giving Xi a real pass, a sort of like, well, we all kind of like autocracy now, and he's the best autocrat. Maybe
Mhm.
we ought to just go the Chinese route. Maybe what we need is an autocrat that's like China. It's a terrifying ideal, right?
My response is hell no, and here's why. Forget the flowery language, the pie in the sky thoughts about America and democracy and city on a hill. Forget that for a second. Innovation takes place because you have people from different perspectives and experiences that put in on it, right? You cannot be a nation or a nation state that's flexible unless you have people that can flex with it. And if you have the ultimate version of groupthink, which is really what an autocracy is groupthink. If you deprive yourself of fresh ideas, fresh perspectives, fresh ways to execute something, then you're just a society waiting to become extinct. And the beautiful thing about the American model, in my humble opinion, is through immigration, through people who were born here, through people who created the culture, you refresh yourself as a society, hopefully to get better each time you refresh yourself. But you're refreshing yourself as a society. The fact that we are now dealing with someone who wants to reverse all of that. America's greatest innovations came from people that were not born here, flat out, period, or their descendants, period. It's undeniable historical fact. And the fact that we have someone who does not recognize that value, and the only time he does is when his rich billionaire friends tell him. And then when he tells the people that we need to have those people, they get upset with him. And then the racism comes out because of the inferiority complex a lot of people have. It's combustible. And at its core, America's been about an idea and ideals. No matter what you look like, no matter what you worship, no matter who you love, no matter what, it's been about ideals. And when we are at our best is when we are doing that. I will fight for this country because I honestly believe in that concept. I believe society should be able to absorb people and their ideas and add it to a tapestry. It's not a blanket, it's a tapestry. And until we understand that, now we're going to continue to remain divided, and other countries will not only overtake us, they will exploit us, which is what's happening.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to end on a high note, and I feel like we're kind of getting there, because that, look, this country is inspiring. It really is.
Yes.
We've done a lot of shit things, and we've never been as good as we could be. But we've all, the underlying premise is that we get better. We strive to get better, more perfect, not perfect, more perfect. So what, Bobby, what's giving you hope right now? Anything? Come on, something.
Well,
right?
I can name a few things. One, it seems like through the tragedy of a possible war crime, Congress may wake up and remember what it's supposed to be doing. I'm also heartened by a lot of the initiatives and a lot of the conversation that's happening in the political sphere for the first time in a long time. Bipartisan panels, bipartisan thoughts, people actually trying to converse with one another. That gives me hope. The other thing that gives me hope too, really, is there appears to be a wall that Americans don't want to cross when it comes to authoritarianism. I think Trump has caught more hell from people the last 6 months than he has his entire adult life. The pushback has been very, very loud. The protests, this, that, and the other. And as someone who's been to a couple of these protests, it's the first time that I've seen people. So, I mean, people literally saying this is my first time going out to a protest. and they're like in their 60s and 70s
Yeah.
because they're livid about what's happening. Now, granted, they probably didn't expect themselves to be doing that this time last year, but something motivated them to do it. I think what you're going to have at the upcoming election cycle is a real debate on what the future of America is going to be, because people see it. The man's not going to be here much longer, whether he leaves office in 3 years or whether his body fails him. He's not going to be here much longer. And the question is, what then? What then? And to be completely honest with you, I'm actually excited to see the debate because it's been a while since we've listened to each other and tried to figure something out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think primary season is going to be really energizing. I think all of these Democrats of Fred Wellman in Missouri and Doug Jones and some of these new Democrats coming up are, wow, it's like, oh, we can start to dream again. Something.
Yeah. Moving forward. You got to.
Well, Bobby, we've done it. We've gone over an hour.
Oh wow, really? Dang.
It always goes so fast. I don't know how this happens. We just get going.
Well, I apologize, people. We try to keep it on an hour. For some reason, we keep going over, but we'll keep working on it.
I mean, I've seen a lot of people in the chat I saw in the first few minutes and still making statements. So at least people are sticking around. Patrick, appreciate you. Your comments are always like, sometimes they're dark, and then the next one that comes out from Patrick makes me laugh audibly. So I always appreciate that. Arlene, I said thanks in the chat, and I mean it. This is a really great, man, we've got a good audience, Bobby.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You guys ask very good questions and make me think, and then have to go during the week and do some research just to make sure I remember everything correctly. But no, I appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Thanks, Bobby. We're going to end on a little surprise 15-second bite. So everyone stay tuned for that. Thanks, Bobby. I'll see you next week.
As of next week, we have begun and will begin to stop moving federal funds into those states until they comply and they tell us and allow us to partner with them to root out this fraud and to protect the American taxpayer. As